Can I tell if my hand is really here if I am not watching? Of course, this assumes that all my other senses like touch, sound, and smell are gone. Sounds strange, right? But what if I told you that reality works exactly the same way? To understand this, let me show you how one of the weirdest experiments in science, the double-slit experiment, challenges everything we know about reality. I won't be going much in detail about the double-slit experiment as there are already enough videos about it on YouTube, but I will briefly tell you how it works. You can check out the specifics later. There is a barrier with two slits on it. Light particles are fired at the slits. A screen is placed beyond the slit to record the pattern the light creates. This experiment is done in two different experimental setups. In one case of the experiment, a camera is used to detect which slit the light particle went through. Light behaves like a particle and it is detected by the camera that it goes through one slit at a time and forms two strips of light on the screen behind, each strip corresponding to one slit. This is the observed case of the experiment. But here's where it gets strange. When no one watches or detects which slit it went through, the light behaves like a wave. It passes through both slits at the same time and creates a interference pattern on the screen behind. I don't want to waste your time here, so you can check out other videos about the double slit experiment to see how interference pattern is formed when it passes through both the slits at the same time. Let's understand this using our hand analogy. It's like this: if I close my eyes, I can't tell where my hand is. It could be anywhere in the probabilistic space. But when I open my eyes, it collapses into one specific place that is right in front of me, attached to my body. Now imagine this: my hand is at position A when my eyes are closed, and I move it to position B while my eyes are still closed. Then I open my eyes after I have already moved my hand to the new position, that is B. This is what the delayed choice experiment explores. The choice to observe is made after the particle has passed the slits, but somehow, whether it behaves like a wave or a particle still matches my choice to observe or not. Let's understand this intuitively with our hand analogy. While my eyes were closed, from my perspective, my hand could have stayed in its old position or the new position or moved anywhere. But the moment I opened my eyes, it's as if my observation locks in that it moved. Even though the hand already moved before I looked, it feels like my observation decided what happened after the fact that the hand has moved. It's as if my observation didn't just confirm the past, it decided it. Of course, this is based on the assumption that all my other senses are gone. You can check out the details of the delayed choice experiment on your own. Now you might think why all this nonsense is important to us to explain reality. But let me tell you this: everything in this universe is made up of these particles that behave strangely depending on whether they are observed or not. Now moving ahead to the next topic, the quantum eraser experiment, which is even stranger than the above experiments. In this experiment, scientists recorded which slit the particle passed through but later erased that information, and when they did, the interference pattern returned, as if the observation never happened. It's like I saw where my hand went but then forgot, and suddenly it's as if my hand could have been anywhere again. So, what's really going on here? To understand this, let's imagine two possible versions of reality. World 1, where reality is based on observation. Things only exist meaningfully when they are observed or interacted with. Reality is built on relationships and interactions. World 2, where reality is based on intrinsic properties. Things have fixed, independent properties that exist on their own whether or not they are observed. Let's compare these two worlds. In World 2, where things are completely independent, two objects X and Y should not even be comparable or able to interact. They are like separate universes. But in our reality, we can compare and interact with things all the time, like my hand moving in front of me. For my hand to have a meaningful position, it's defined relative to something, like my body. That means the position isn't completely self contained, it's relational. In World 1, reality only makes sense because things relate to each other. Observation is what defines these relationships. Without observation, how can we define them? World 2 seems simple. Why don't things just exist independently? But here's the problem: if things have intrinsic properties, how do those properties ever interact or relate? They can't. They would be like separate islands that never touch. Imagine trying to describe the color blue without comparing it to anything else. No sky, no water, nothing. Without relationships, the concept becomes meaningless. To say that my hand moved left or right only makes sense if there's a shared frame of reference, something that allows interaction. So instead of reality being built on isolated truths, it's built on relationship, on interactions and observation that makes things real. This is exactly what quantum experiment shows us. In the double-slit experiment, the particle's reality, wave or particle, depends on whether it is observed or not. In the delayed choice experiment, even the past seems to be resolved based on the later observations. In the quantum eraser experiment, reality itself seems to change when information is erased. All of this points to one thing: reality isn't intrinsic, it's relational, defined by interactions and observations. Our world behaves like World 1, a network of interactions and relationships, not isolated independent things. Observation isn't just an afterthought, it's what grounds reality itself. In a world where everything had fixed independent properties, nothing would make sense or interact. It's the relationship between things that define reality. So, is my hand really here when I close my eyes? Or is reality waiting for me to open them? Maybe reality isn't a fixed thing. It's a story that only makes sense when someone's watching. Let's think about it this way: X represents an object and Y represents the observer. X's existence depends on Y observing it, but Y, the observer, can't define things on its own either. Y itself may be defined by something else, call it Z. If X depends on Y and Y depends on Z, what defines Z? If everything in this world is defined by relationships, what holds those relationships together? Is there something fundamental beneath it all? Or is it just relationships all the way down? Please like, comment and subscribe to my channel for more such interesting videos.